Life with no distractions, we'll get away. This is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's be free with me. Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free.
Lightning strikes by my window, hits my chest right in the morning, like a warning. Could have slept here for days. I felt your heartbeat, felt your mouth breathe, but it's not real. We were close to see the sun, but clouds got in our way, and so
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Sunday night. One word. I'm glad you're here, and just grateful that we can spend the night just a few minutes on Sunday to kind of get our week right for this coming week. As you know, one word is where it's this community that comes together on Sunday night where we talk about one word for the week. Now, it might be one word that can enhance your leadership. We've talked about that before. You might say, well, I'm not a leader. But if you have any influence over anybody, you are a leader. So we'll just call it one word to enhance your leadership, or one word that might just enhance you being a better human being this week. We could all do that and use a little bit of that, right? Particularly in this crazy world. And so tonight, I think you're going to like the word, but more so, you're going to like the guy that's going to deliver the word, because, and that's not me, I have a special guest tonight, and I'm excited to bring him on board here. His name is Bill Edmonds. Let's see here. There's the one word slide. There's Bill. You always tell it's live. You know, there's always a slide that sneaks in there when you didn't plan on it. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing great, Tim. How about you?
I'm doing good. Listen, I want to give a little introduction, and then I'll hang out here with you, but I'll let you do most of the talking tonight. Try not to steal some of your thunder. Um, First of all, I want to say, let me just introduce you, and then I want to share a word or two about you. Bill is the owner of North Star Leadership out of Columbia, and he's also part of the alternative board. We call it the TAB board. He runs several of those. He's an executive coach. He's a business consultant, works primarily with business owners and executives and financial advisors, which I do as well. And that's kind of, tell you in a minute, that's how we met around the country, helping them be more productive and also more profitable. We'd all like to do that, and more purposeful. And I like that word, purposeful. And you know, really that's what one word is all about, for us to live our lives more purposeful. I met Bill back in, I guess it was February, at the Kingdom Advisor Conference. It's a financial advisor conference. And you know how sometimes you meet people and you just meet them and you say hello and you never think anything about it. And then there's other times you meet people and you have a short conversation, but when they walk away, you think, there's something about that person that I need to follow up with. There's something that I need to, I don't know. There's just a relationship there. Well, that's the way it was for me and Bill. And so I followed up. We've had numerous conversations since, and I'd love to, kind of almost a privilege to say, in a short period of time since February, he's become a great friend, a dear friend. Respect him. I respect his leadership. And when I thought I want to have a guest on to do one word so we could kind of share that, I thought, who am I going to call? Bill was the first person that I called. So Bill, welcome. And we're glad that you're here with us tonight.
Thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here. And I would just echo what Tim said. When I met Tim, there was an instant connection. But I must tell you that what attracted me to Tim was, I was at this conference, and they have vendors, people with booths all set up in this big area. And there's always a couple that are really top shelf and really get your attention. And then there's some of those that aren't so good, look like they've been thrown together the night before. But I went past Tim's booth and I said, wow, I don't know what this guy does, but I want to find out, because this is the best presentation I've seen out there. So obviously we met and connected, and we've started collaborating a lot and really enjoy each other's company. So I feel the same, Tim. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know. I felt at times when I was there that it was just thrown together the night before. So that makes me feel good. Thank you.
It was not.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to you with our word for the week.
Well, thank you, Tim. Well, it's a pleasure to be the first guest, and the word is simplicity, and it's one of my favorite words. I'm just a simple person, and I don't say that I'm simplistic. Simplistic is when you you dumb something down. But there is a real challenge out there. And you'd ask me, Tim, when I come up with a word, share with the audience why I chose the word, why I think it's important right now. And it's real simple. I chose it because the world's been overcomplicated, primarily by information, number one, and number two, providers of that information not taking the time to think about what they're actually informing their audience of. Now, that can come all the way from the government. It certainly comes from the news. It comes from everything. It comes from intercommunication between people in offices. But simplicity really means that the freedom from complexity, the state, the quality, or an instance of being simple. So simplicity means something is easy to understand, easy to deal with, and easy to use. So if something's easy to use and easy to understand, what you've got is clarity. And if we have clarity, clarity saves time, it saves money, and it saves mental capacity. And those are our three greatest commodities.
Hey, Bill, I
Yes.
don't know about you, but the older I get, the more I love simplicity. How about you?
Absolutely.
Just for us old guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in the business, when I was in the financial services world, one of these folks would come in, wholesalers is what they were called, and they represented mutual fund companies and money managers, and they would come in and they would talk about all the different products, and they'd have prospectuses and everything. But the most asked question from financial advisors was, "Hey, do you have a one-pager on it? Something that really simplifies this." And what we call that today, Tim, is we call that an executive summary. It's an executive summary. It's the most important points. So absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just said I agree. Totally agree. I told somebody that recently that had a long, drawn-out presentation, and I said, "Hey, we should really cut that to just one page." And you can have all the detail you want over here, but let's just look at one page, because that's all that we really can consume a lot of times.
Well, we're certainly all guilty of that, and it reminds me of a story. A couple of years ago, when I launched my tab business that you mentioned, the Alternative Board, and we went over to eat dinner with a couple, and so my friend asked me the question. Hey, well, tell me about your business, which I was ready to talk about. I was prepared for this. And so what I had done is I had gotten this thing down to a nice, neatly packaged discussion. And so, I told him about it, explained it to him. And we went to the car. We were getting in the car going home. My wife says, "You have got to shorten that presentation." So what I thought was simple was not so simple. And I think the problem is, Tim, that we're trying to get in every one of our points. Mm-hmm. And, when you give somebody, I love to speak, you love to speak. And the hardest thing as speakers is for somebody to say, "Hey, we want you to talk about this, and we want you to do it in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. It's much easier to take the same subject matter and drone on for 45 minutes. And of course, that's not good use of your time. It's certainly not good use of the time of the people who are listening to you or pretending to listen to you, maybe I should add. But simplicity is important. Again, what does it do? It saves us, it provides clarity, it saves us time, it saves us money, and it saves us mental capacity. Mm-hmm. So I want to share just a couple of things that have really helped me out. And these are tactics and techniques and hacks, if you will, that I teach my clients, business clients, financial advisors, executives. And the first one centers around two questions. And, when I was coming along years ago in sales and marketing, someone shared with me what they call the Ben Franklin close. And have you ever heard of that, Tim?
Yeah, I have. I don't know that I know the details. I'm anxious to hear it again.
Well, the Ben Franklin close was when you're trying to make a decision, you list all the pros on one side and all the cons on the other thing. So you got a tough decision to make. So you list all the pros, and you got 49 pros. You list all the cons, and you got 50 cons. So it's real simple, right? You got 50 cons, you got 49 pros. Obviously, you go with the cons. No, now what you have is 99 pieces of data that have just flooded and caused you more confusion. So What if you could whittle that down to 2 questions? And that's exactly what I'm going to share with you here. And these guys that I learned it from had a documentary. I think it was called Minimalism, or anyway, they call themselves the Minimalist. And I heard this several years back, and I said, that's brilliant. I could use that in my life. I could, to simplify it, I could use it in the lives of my clients. So here it is. What this applies to, Tim, is anytime you're trying to make a decision, you can ask yourself these 2 questions, and it will help you cut to the chase. Now, it could be something that you're thinking about adding to your life. Now, remember, we talked about time, money, and mental capacity. So mental capacity, let me just explain. But that's stress, okay? If you don't have much mental capacity, you are stressed out. So when we add things to our lives, whether it be things that cost us money, whether things that cost us time, we have taken away often from our mental capacity, and we've created some stress. So if you're trying to make a decision of something to add or something to take away, whether it's time, whether it's money, you need to ask these 2 questions. So let's say that you have a decision that you want a car. Tim, you tell me, you said, hey, Bill, I need a new car. And I said, great. Okay, Tim. So here's the first question. First question. You ready, Tim?
Yep.
Does this add value to your life?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Always use a new car.
Well, wait a minute, Tim. Do you have a car now?
I do have a car now.
Okay. Does it get you from point A to point B?
It does get me from point A to point B, and I see where you're going. So you're taking away my enthusiasm for a new car here.
Well, I might be saving you money too.
It could be that too.
Don't forget that. But so the question is, does this add value to your life? Well, here's what you're telling me. I already have a car, Bill. It gets me from point A to point B. Are you embarrassed to drive it?
No, I'm not embarrassed to drive it.
So it's not an eyesore, so anything like this. So the question is, does this add value to your life? And the question, I'm going to answer it for you. You disagree if you like. The answer is no, because you already have a mode of transportation. You already have a car that gets you from point A to point B. So can we agree on that?
We can agree.
So let me stop right there. Remember, I said there's 2 questions. Here's the way it works. If the answer to the first question is yes, we don't even go to question 2. You might say, well, Bill, it does add value to my life. And I'd say, why, Tim? And you say, because I currently have no car and I need one for my business. But by all means, buy the car.
So it sounds like, since my answer was no, that there's hope. There might be hope in the next question.
There might be. Okay. I might disappoint you again.
Okay.
So the first question is, does this add value to my life? Okay. That is a utilitarian question. Okay. It has utilitarian value. Now, the second question is not so, in fact, it's not utilitarian at all. It's subjective. And here's the question, Tim. Does this bring me joy? Does this bring me joy? So back to your car example. You want to buy a car. Okay, you found out I really don't need a car, Bill. I mean, it doesn't add value to my life because I have one. Okay, next question. Does it bring you joy? Now, perhaps, it's an upgrade. And usually when we buy a new car, a new used car, we're sort of upgrading, right? So maybe you're going from an old clunker, but you said you didn't have one. But let's just say, it's a Ford Taurus. Nothing spectacular, runs well. And the car you're looking at is, let's just say it's a brand new Mercedes. And so does it bring you joy? You think it'll bring you joy?
Might make me happy.
Okay.
Is there a difference between the two?
Well, there's a lot of difference between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. My garage is over the years has been known to be filled with things that made me happy at one point.
Okay. And what happens is, a lot of times that happiness, once it wears off a little bit and, the new car smell's gone. How about this one? When the first payment comes in,
yeah, for sure.
There's like 60-day lag, and then, you might see a ding on it. Heaven forbid a new Mercedes gets a ding. Shouldn't it be immune for something like that? But, it begins to. But does it bring you joy? The answer is perhaps. not. Okay. Now we won't get into that, but here it is. You're trying to make a decision. Two questions. Does it add value to my life? What is that? We said that was a utilitarian question. Okay. It has to do with utility. Does it add value to my life? The answer is no. You go to question two, and question two is, does it bring me joy? And don't try to convince yourself, be honest, because remember what we're trying to do, Tim, is we're trying to simplify our life here. We're trying to make a decision quickly without going through those 99 points, those 49 pros and those 50 cons.
That's a great point.
Answer is no, then you don't do it.
Yeah.
And it's that simple.
Yeah, great stuff. Great wisdom there, and all kinds of thoughts. I've sat in rooms with teams at times and so forth, and we try to make a decision. And you get the the ones that say, "Well, let's go for it," and you get the others that say, "Well, no, we got to lay everything out on the table." And I have a tendency to be a little bit more of the "let's go for it." But I appreciate those that say, well, let's lay everything out on the table. But I do know sometimes when we lay out all those 99 things or 100 things, the opportunity can pass while we're trying to answer that. I've had people say, but what are we going to do in step 5? And I say, I don't know until we get to step 4. I don't know that right now. Exactly. So I love the simplicity, your one word. I love the simplicity nature of that little exercise.
Well, again, simple means it's easy to use. It's easy to understand. It doesn't mean it's not. I mean, gravity is a simple thing. You drop something to the ground, it falls. But I'm sure you can go into all the physics of that. And again, somebody asks you what time it is, you don't start with, people used to use sundials, and now they use, and it's, hey, look, I didn't ask you how to make a watch. I just asked you what time it is.
Yeah.
So we're looking for that. The cable company calls me the other day and said, "Hey, congratulations, Mr. Edmonds. We're going to give you more channels." And I said, "No, please. Can I pay you more to have less channels? And let me tell you what channels I want." And they don't know what to say because it doesn't make sense. I mean, so that thing, less is more. There's something to that.
Yeah, that reminds me. I just about a week ago, I was in a client's office, and Fletcher, my son, who works with me, and so the client asked, "Hey, tell me a little bit about what you do," and so forth. And I began to tell him that. And so when we got through, we got in the car, we're driving away. It's kind of like your conversation with your wife. And I looked at Fletcher and I said, "That all, he's a good sounding board, and he's very observant." And I said to him, "Did that all go okay? Did you feel like that was all right?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, wait a minute, there's something there." He said, "I just don't know that he needed to know all of that in that conversation." So I totally agree. It was like, we're probably going to talk again, so I don't have to tell you everything in that first conversation. Good point. Yeah. Exactly.
So, and just one other thing. We got time to share another one here?
Absolutely.
Okay. So one other thing is what I call the rule of threes. And one of these days, by the way, one of these days I'm going to do what Tim Riddle done, and I'm going to write a book. Okay. There you go. See, I have it handy. I didn't even realize how handy it was. But I think I'm going to call it the rule of threes, or maybe I just call it simple.
Let me open that book back up. Let me see if there's any underlines in it or anything.
Okay.
Maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
All right.
So I feel like I don't have to read the book. I know the author, right?
There you go. Yeah. Okay.
But
all right.
I am gonna get to it. I've scanned it. There's some good stuff in there. But the rule of threes, and this is the way that I like to think about it. It's a way to put some context around simplicity. Now, what happens is, one of the things that I do, let me just back up a little bit. One of the things I do, I work a lot with companies and organizations on mission statements. And so what happens a lot of times with mission statements, they bring a consultant in, he or she gives them some information. The executives or the leaders get around the table for the next day and a half, and they work through these wonderful statements that don't quite resonate with people other than themselves. And you get a bunch of executives around, people with big egos, and everybody wants to own a piece of what's produced. So you have a competition there, and they come up with all these fancy words, and then they've got this long mission statement that makes no sense to anybody, and they all pat themselves on the back, and they're looking up there and they say, well, those 3 words are mine, or those 4 words are mine. And the end user, the consumer, the potential consumer, it doesn't mean a thing to them. So what I like to do is we'll start off and we'll go through values, and give people like 100 words to pick from. Pick the 10 values here, the words that most describe your values, reflect them. And they'll work really hard, come up with 10, and then I'll go back to them. By the way, I don't tell them this ahead of time. I go back to them and say, hey, knock it down to 5. Then they work and they go down to 5, and I said, okay, now those are 5 good ones, great. Come up with 3. And why 3, Tim? Because people can remember 3. If when you ask people, hey, tell me what are the 3 most important things to you right now? If I say to you, Tim, what's the 5 most important things? Wow, I mean, you might get to 2 or 3, but you're going to struggle. What
Then
are
you're
the
making
3?
it up after that.
Yeah, 3. So here's my analogy. Have you ever gone to a restaurant and gotten a wobbly table?
Yeah, we all have, for sure.
It drives me crazy, and it drives my children crazy and my wife crazy that it drives me crazy. Okay?
You're that guy, right? So you're that guy sticking the stuff underneath it and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Where did the knives go? Well, they're underneath the table trying to balance the table out. So the thing that drives my kids crazy and my wife crazy is that I go crazy over that. But hey, here's what I'm figuring. I'm coming into there and I'm paying good money. And by the way, my table at home doesn't wobble. So what's the difference? Okay. So anyway, enough about that.
Good point.
But here's something interesting. You need to have a flat surface for 4 legs. When you have 3 legs, you don't. A 3-legged table, and you don't see a whole lot of them. Now, here's where you'll see them. You'll see them outside cafeterias. You'll see cafes. You'll see them when there's uneven, and they need more of a base. I get that. They need more space down there, but they will balance on any surface. Think of a 3-legged stool. You can sit it anywhere because it will balance. So less is more. And when people, if you look, Donald Miller, one of our favorites. Tim, you're a big fan of Miller's, and so am I. But he says, if you confuse, you lose. And if you'll look at the suggestions for that he does with his marketing, his websites, it's 3 things. So again, stick with 3 things. Don't complicate it. Stick with 3. So rule of 3s and 2 questions. I think if you take that away, you can simplify your life. You can be a better communicator. You can make decisions quicker, and you can keep the things that matter most in front of you.
That rule of 3s, Bill, just yesterday, last night, I guess it was, I was watching something on YouTube, and it was an accessory for your computer, your MacBook computer, and it was to allow you to set something on it. And the guy said, when you put it together, he said they put it together in triangles. And he said it feels real flimsy, but because it's a triangle, it makes it stronger. That's the strongest way to put something together. I don't think I'm stretching too much there, but that's a little bit of what you're saying. He was using that analogy that, if you do have the 4 or have it as a square, it could wobble around, but because it was a triangle, then it was pretty steady, pretty firm,
and pretty simple, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I agree. I think, and that's I appreciate you covering that, because that's really why we're doing one word, because I just feel like on Sunday nights, as we're preparing for the week, there's a lot of stuff that we have to think about, and if we could just think about one word that we might put on the refrigerator beside our, on our desk, or beside our table, beside our bed, and just shine a little spotlight on it, kind of the blind spot analogy. How do you get rid of a blind spot? You shine some light on it, put a little spotlight on it. Doesn't necessarily mean you're just going to wake up and be excellent at that, but I tell you, the majority of times I've found, I don't know about you, is that leadership for people to improve or just to improve, trying to be a better human being, awareness is usually one of the top things. If you
Yeah.
can be aware of kind of where those deficiencies are, boy, you took a huge step in the right direction. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And when we, what we say about people who are unaware,
What's that?
bless his heart, right?
That's right.
And
That's right.
when people say, if people are talking about you and they say bless his heart before they say something about you, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's not a good thing.
I agree. I know our time's running over, but I'm enjoying talking to you. So I'll give this little quick analogy. I heard a leader talk about leaders and how sometimes they don't like to talk about their weaknesses, and so they're looking at their strengths, but it's like, well, I can't tell my team my weakness
Yeah.
because that would make me look weak. I can't divulge all of that information. So no way I can do that. And the speaker walked out to the end of the stage and he kind of leaned over like this and he said, let me let you in on a little secret. They already know. They already know what your weakness is. They're just waiting for you to clue into it as
Yeah.
well. So
You're
it's
right, Tim. You're
yeah.
right.
Well,
right.
thanks so much, and thanks for
No, thank you.
this great word, simplicity. Kind of makes me feel like I need some shields or something this week when I have things that's kind of wanting to come in and cover up my desk and make things complicated. Sort of carve away to that stuff. Maybe use your 2 questions. When I'm making decisions. I love that, and remember that rule of thirds for sure. I do that with the big 3 every morning. That's probably been the thing that sustained me more than anything to try to keep focused, is that otherwise I can come up with a list a mile long, but never really get anywhere with it.
Yes. Excellent.
Yeah. Bill, thanks. Appreciate
You're
you.
welcome.
Appreciate the friendship, and we'll get you back because I know people have benefited certainly from your words of wisdom.
Thank you, Tim. Anytime, my friend.
Have a good one.
You too.